So what a needs assessment is, it is just a tool that's used to plan training content. You're going to want to identify things like what participants need to know, what they already know, resources that they might have available, and just the who and the where, those specific details. And it's really important to know all of that stuff, especially the what they already know. You don't want to train above or below what their level is. So what do they already know? What is their competency in the subject that you're going to be training on? All right, and then benefits. This is just from what you guys sent us. This isn't everything. I couldn't fit it all on here, so I just wanted to share this. This is just a little cloud. These are some of the benefits that you guys shared with doing needs assessments. So I'll read a couple. Identify the specific needs of an individual or group. Enable you to reach your audience so that they leave with understanding and something they can take back to their centers. As a participant, it allows me to give input to the trainer. And then this one from a director, get exactly what my staff need rather than sending them to random trainings that may or may not fit their needs. So some common types of needs assessment. This is definitely not all inclusive, but as a trainer, these are some of the more common ones that you might do. On the spot, these are ones that are done typically the day of the training with the participants. Interviews, these are done prior to the training with the director, participants, and other stakeholders that might need to share information about what types of trainings they would want. And then reports or data, so using reports to identify training needs. All right.
Okay, so we're going to take a poll real quick using the Zoom polling feature that Dawn's going to activate in just a second. The question is going to be, what types of needs assessments have you used as a trainer in your trainings or for your trainings? So the choices are on the spot, interviews, report and data, or something else. And you can share in the chat if you clicked on the something else. So we'll give you just a second to get your answer submitted.
Let's see, it looks like right now most people have used on the spot with interviews. Let's see, some of the others, Survey Monkeys, Google Forms, questionnaires. All right, in the poll, and here are the results.
So it looks like most people have used on the spot and a lot of interviews. Also, Julie shared in the chat using Facebook preschool teacher groups to do a needs assessment. Okay. All right. So on the spot needs assessments are done on the day of the training with participants. They're typically done at the beginning of your training. You can do these as openers as well. They can be completed throughout the training as well. When you need to know about, like Dawn said before, their background knowledge on some certain topics. It's a good way just to, maybe ask a question and get some immediate on the spot needs assessment. They're used to gauge the knowledge or experience of content when a formal assessment before the training isn't able to be done. So they're really good if you have a group of people that you're not really sure who all your participants are going to be and you can't have contact before. So some examples of on-the-spot needs assessments are openers, as I said, mentioned earlier. And we're going to show you, demonstrate Four Corners for you. So Four Corners is one of the activities that we use within our FET, which is the fundamentals of effective training that credential trainers are required to take for their credential. And we use this to gauge participants' experience when facilitating trainings, resources for support, and experience in early childhood. So in this activity, if you've ever been in our FET, or if you were not in there recently and it's been a long time, you may not have done four corners. But if we're in a room setting, we use the four corners within the room that we're in, and we put a 1, 2, and a 3, and a 4 in each corner. We ask a series of questions. The first question may be something along the lines of, how many years experience do you have in early childhood? And we'll say, okay, if you have no experience, this is your first rodeo, then you're going to corner 1. And if you've had 1 to 5 years, you might go to corner 2. And if you've had 5 to 10 years, you're going to corner 3. And if you've had more than 10 years, you're going to the 4th corner. And then once they get into those groups at their corner, we give them a series of questions to kind of talk about and discuss among the group that's in that corner. So you're able to see, as a trainer, the responses to those questions visually. And it requires little prep time because, like I said, we just put a number up in each corner. So we're not having to bring a whole bunch of material or prepare a whole bunch. And you can change your questions depending on your training content. So you could actually use 4 corners for different training topics or needs. Okay, and like we just demonstrated, we use polling a lot to do on-the-spot needs assessments. So we just polled you guys a question to see what kind of previous background knowledge you have with using needs assessments and what you've done. Okay, so hold up TPTs is next. We have some great, lovely models here in these pictures too. So hold up TPTs, you can either use paddle boards or, like they're using in the pictures, just cards. And you can get a series of questions together. They could be true or not true, multiple choice, yes, no, maybe. And you could have cards available at the tables for your participants. Ask your question, have them hold up their responses. And so that's a quick way to get a needs assessment done, and you were able to see that visually as well. Okay, then the last one is 3, 2, 1. This is where you're going to ask them 3 things that they already know about the topic. Then you're going to ask them 2 things that they want to learn more about the topic that you're training on, and have them ask 1 question that they have about that topic. You can use this to actually even come back to at the end to kind of follow up and make sure that their question was answered. So it's just a good way to kind of get some prior knowledge, things that they want you to cover, and then making sure that you've covered all their questions and the information that they want to know about that topic. Okay.
All right, so interview-based needs assessments. These are done before the training with directors, stakeholders, participants, just anyone who can help provide training needs specifics. So sometimes stakeholders might be, if you have like a board or parents or, just anyone who can give that information. While interview does sound very formal, it could be a formal or it could be informal. Thinking, if you're at a CECC meeting and somebody says, hey, can you do a training? That might be more of an informal type of interview-based needs assessment, because you're going to ask some questions. Well, who's going to be there? What's going to be the content? And asking those specifics to get that information. Typically, you're going to use a set of predetermined questions, and you're going to get at the details of who. So who is attending the training? Who needs the training? What is the participant's knowledge? What's their background? What ages do they cover? All of that type of information. The why do they need this? What is the outcome that they're wanting to have from this training? And then the when do they need it? Do they need it next week? Do they need it in 6 months? When exactly are they needing that training? Right. And then here are just some examples of some interview-based needs assessments. We've got director, participant, and stakeholder. And so we're going to watch this video here. Some of you may remember it from FET, but it's a video of a director, an interview-based needs assessment with a director.
No. Nope, neither one.
Did you bring us pizza?
Okay. I'll call you later. Bye.
So is there anything in particular that is demanding this training? Has something happened? Is there a reason why you want this training?
Well, definitely. like and I know in an infant toddler classroom, a big portion of their day is spent on daily care routines. So they're doing diapers, they're helping the children feed. Some of them are learning to walk, and so I think that the teachers really sometimes just get caught up in those daily care routines, and so trying to find time to really build art into the classroom is something I think we struggle with. So maybe some pointers on time management or how they can just better manage their time, and then also materials. So what materials are appropriate for infants and toddlers? Sometimes I think the materials that the teachers may want to use, maybe we could have a more appropriate material. So anything around those two areas would be great.
And then how much do the teachers who are going to be coming to the training already know about this? Do they have a limited knowledge, a pretty good knowledge of the topic?
I think they have minimal knowledge. I mean, they have a few years under their belt, but some of them maybe have taught preschool before, and so infant toddlers may be new to them, or maybe they did toddlers and now they're doing infants. So if we could kind of keep the training as, I guess, maybe as basic as possible, just to really give them as much knowledge as possible.
So I know you mentioned that you really want to make sure that they're able to know how to incorporate art into the daily schedule, what materials to use. Is that what you hope to get the most out of this training, or is there something more that you would like to get from it?
I think those are the two main things. I think that the teachers really want a training that's engaging. So in terms of the materials, maybe if you all could actually do some of the art activities in the training, so like a make and take, something that they could actually see how these materials will be able to work in the classroom. Because I think sometimes when you introduce new materials, the teachers may be like, we've never done that, that's not going to work. So maybe actually showing them how the materials could work would be great.
Are there any other particular concerns or questions or things that you want me to cover other than making sure they have materials, what to use, incorporating it into the schedule?
I don't think so. I mean, I think just that time management piece and the materials and how to use them, if we could cover those things, it would be great.
Is there an expected benefit or an expected skill that you, when they leave the training, that you are like, I want them to be able to do this?
So if they could come away with 4 or 5 new materials that they could use and 4 or 5 new activities that they could do in the classroom, that would be great.
What time? Like, do you have a particular date or like a general day of the week that works better, a time frame that you're wanting to have this training done in?
We're pretty flexible, but obviously because they're with the kids all day, if we could do something in the evening, any weekday except Friday would work. So Monday through Thursday, and we close at 6. So we could do like a 6 to 8.
And then is this something that you need done immediately or in the next couple of months?
In the next couple of months. I was thinking, maybe in the next 6 to 8 weeks, if we could get it done, that would be awesome.
And then where would we have the training? Do you have facilities here?
We have space here and adult seating and plenty of tables, so we could do it here.
All right. So that was just an example of a director interview. Whenever you're asking questions to whether it be the director or the participant or stakeholder, sometimes questions lead to more questions. Even if you have a set of predetermined questions, you might find that it leads to something else. And sometimes the fun, if you're doing director and participants kind of at the same time, you might find that they have differing opinions too on what is important. So sometimes getting to the heart of what the actual issue or concern is. And that's probably one of with any type of needs assessment, but with interview-based needs assessments, because you're actually talking to the person, it really helps to kind of narrow things down. So sometimes you might just get a training request for behavior management. And we all know that that is just such a broad topic. It can cover so many different things. But when you're having that interview and you're actually getting down to the specifics of what's going on, you might find out that the issue isn't necessarily behavior management per se, like teaching the teachers how to respond appropriately. You notice that the schedule's inappropriate, and that's why there's behavior issues. So using needs assessments, especially interview-based ones, to help with figuring out those specifics and getting more into the nitty-gritty details of things. All right, and then this is an example of a participant-based needs assessment. It was very short and brief, but once again, this was on your survey. And the question was, have you completed needs assessment as participants? Most of you guys had said yes, so that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that that's happening and that you guys are doing that. And it's little, obviously you can see it's a little less than half said no, but that gives us a good idea of what your background is and what information you already are coming in with. If most of you are saying, yes, you have done needs assessments, then you're more familiar with them, and it gives us a better guide of where to start from. And then stakeholder, we kind of already mentioned that before. Stakeholders, pretty much just anybody that's not a director or parent, depending on the type of program, depending on who is asking you to do the training, there may be other people outside of just director and participants. So like board of directors, CECC, members, just different people that have a vested interest. Okay. Sorry. Oh, there we go. I was thinking a little too hard. All right, and so reports and database needs assessment. This is where you're just going to use information from reports or data-driven information to plan a training. You might use this in conjunction with an interview-based or an interview-based or an on-the-spot needs assessment to gather more information that might not be included in the report. But the main thing is you're just kind of using reports and data to gauge what type of training is needed. And these are just some examples. So the first one, observations. This can be any type of observation that either somebody at the center, so maybe a director is doing, or somebody outside the program is coming in and doing. Talking about, like your class observations, your ERS observations, just different types of observations. And the information from that can help drive what a training might need to be. I know this is really small, so you probably can't read it unless you're on a computer, but this is just taken from an observation report that a program might have gotten. And it just talks about an area of focus. So it talks about areas of effectiveness, and then it's got areas for growth and improvement. So as a trainer, if you were to ask a director, have you had observations recently? Can I have a copy of that report? Or can we look at that report together and maybe we can get some ideas for what types of trainings you would need? You could use this to gather that information. Quality self-study is another type of observation that could be used. It's a little bit different than a direct observation. And this is just kind of an example of a part of it. This is the quality self-study. And the indicators on here the standard is staff promote a positive climate for learning and help children learn how to establish positive, constructive relationships with the adults and other children. And then it's got the indicators on here, examples, and then whether it's not met, it's in process, it's fully met, and then an action plan, a space where you can put what you want to do in order to meet that. And we do want to use this one just kind of as a little example. So looking at this one and what is checked on here, what are some possible training ideas that you could get from this? So if a director gave you this and said, help me plan a training, what are some ideas that you might come up with for training topics?
I would say maybe the rationale for why this age group should not have access to television time.
Okay. Any other ideas? You can unmute or put it in chat. And I would say just kind of paying attention to where it is the in process. So if something on here is in process, then the assumption is that the teachers do have a little bit more than the basic knowledge of it. So you might not have to do, the super basic information. So like Havonia said, staff, parent communication or involvement. Yes. So on the example here, children are greeted by names, parents are acknowledged in a positive manner. So maybe they greet the children, but they're not necessarily super positive when they're greeting them. Using parts of connect the dots. Yes, yes, definitely. All right. Oh. Importance of positive parent communication. Yes. All right, go back. And then DRCC reports. So the Division of Regulated, Gina Phillips also added how to greet kids during COVID times with masking and social distancing. Oh, that would be awesome. Thanks. So DRCC reports, the Division of Regulated Childcare. Whenever a program has an annual or an investigation, sorry. So DRCC, when they do their investigations or when they do their annual visits, they always issue out a report. And so if something is not in compliance, there's usually a little bit of information on here. And this just kind of gives you an idea. So once again, a program could say, I need some training ideas. You could say, hey, let's pull your DRCC report. What are some things that might be on there? And you can pull it up and get some ideas. So this one was, surveyor found that staff person utilized loud and harsh tone of voice with a toddler. So, some training ideas might be, effective communication, how to talk to little kids, those types of things. Right. And then some other things you might use, screening data. So I know a lot of people are using Brigance these days. So if you're using Brigance and you have access to that information, or even if it's not specific to your program, pulling up those county reports on the governor's office. I believe that's where they still are, the governor's office website. What does it say for your county in regards to, kindergarten readiness, using that type of information, that screening data. Curriculum-based assessment. So if you have a program that's using, TSG or any other types of curriculum, and while those are meant to help do the individual, plans, you can also use it to look at trends. So when you're doing these assessments, if you're noticing across the board, there's one area where a lot of, teachers or children are needing help in, you can use that to guide the training. And then parent or child feedback. So asking parents, what do they think that the program could improve on? Or it could be something super specific, like a child that comes in with a specific medical need that maybe the program has never addressed before, and providing a training specifically on helping that child with that need. So using that parent and that child feedback to help plan trainings. Has anybody ever used reports or data to gather training ideas or to plan trainings?
I know within our region, Dawn, we have some CECCs that use the DRCC reports for knowing kind of how to provide training in that county. Not specific to maybe a center, but as a county, like where they're kind of lacking on the kindergarten readiness skills. So they do focus some trainings in that area for them.
Awesome. And then Cavonia said that she's used rating scale results before. All right, some question and answers.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself again. Okay, so these were some questions that were asked when we did our questions for our registration today. And so I'm not sure if we answered some of these, but we're going to go through them real quick. The first question is, what if I'm not able to provide training that they need? And when we looked at this, we took it from a place where we thought you were asking, what if it's a training on a topic that you're not familiar with, or you don't have enough background or experience with it? Our recommendation is, if you don't have any experience or knowledge and are not comfortable teaching on a topic, then it's probably best not to train on that topic. And maybe if you know some other trainers that can train, you can suggest a trainer, or you could suggest a different topic by, like we say, doing one of these needs assessment and seeing where maybe there's another need. The next question is, how can I gather the information? So I'm going to kind of let you guys see if you can answer this question. How have some of you gathered information for your needs assessment? You can feel free to unmute or pop it in the chat. Using previous evaluations, okay, to get what, by asking what training would they like to attend. Interview staff and director. Okay. Drcc reports, screeners, evaluations from STARS, observing in a classroom. Okay. Okay, you could kind of do something like we did today, where Dawn kind of sent out a poll and asked you some questions through email. You can even just, if you didn't want to do like a polling, you could just send questions to a director. If you can't work out time with the director to do like a formal sit down interview, you could send questions and have them just respond through an email or a phone call. I saw something else come up in the chat, but I couldn't see it. Google form. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And interviewing the director. Okay.
I was just going to say, sometimes, with like Google Forms or any type of survey, sometimes the problem can be getting that information back. They don't always complete it. We included ours with the registration. So, and we do that for a reason. So we do that specifically because if you're going to register, it kind of forces you to put an answer in. And now it's not obviously 100% perfect. I said it that it's a required question if it's something that I want some information from. That doesn't mean that somebody can't just like randomly like hit their keyboard and put just random letters in it. But generally speaking, especially if they know that this information is going to be used in the training or it's going to be pertinent to the training, generally speaking, most people will put a thoughtful answer. And I mean, I can tell you from experience and just from this survey, pretty much everybody put a good answer, good responses into those questions.
Okay, the next question is, how can I help a person articulate their answers?
I mean, I don't know specifically who asked it. I think that it kind of came about from more of a, now I can't articulate my answer. Just trying to get them to articulate the answer, get to say what it is that they really need, instead of just kind of like beating around the bush, getting them to be more direct and more specific with what is needed. I feel like that was an example, a very good example of not being able to articulate an answer.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, and maybe this has to do with, I would say my suggestion would be that probably a more direct interview would probably be the easiest way to get somebody to better articulate their answers than just giving them kind of a random multiple choice, you choose this, this, and this kind of thing, so that you could better get exactly what their need is.
Yeah, I would agree. If it's something that you need some super specific details or information, having that interview is a better way to get it. Yeah, filling out a survey or a yes, no, on a Likert scale, it would be more for the things that don't require complex answers. And Cavonia said, keep asking questions. Sometimes their answer is too broad, so piggyback, until you hone in onto it better. Yes.
Okay, so the next question is, how can I help a program that has a lot of needs? Okay, so on this kind of situation, if you have a program that you go into and you have a director's interview, or they've got reports and they have a lot of areas that they need help with, I would recommend doing several trainings for the center instead of trying to, obviously you don't want to put all the content into one training and overload them with content so that they're not able to practice what you're discussing. But I would set up a series maybe of trainings on the areas that there is a need, and kind of ask them to prioritize what they feel is the biggest need at the time, and then kind of go from there. I love the idea of needs assessments, but where do I start? Okay, anybody, y'all want to answer this one? Where do you think people should start if they have not done? I'm assuming this person has not done needs assessment, but they like the idea of doing them. Start with the director. Okay, good idea. Be prepared with a short list of questions so you can feel comfortable speaking to the director. That's a good one. I know somebody mentioned that they kind of got some a little bit of a needs assessment question added in onto their evaluation, so you could actually kind of piggyback off of a previous evaluation that you're doing to try to get ideas for the needs in that area. And I would say, just to be honest, I feel like if you can't, like Dawn said, sometimes getting the response back is the hardest part of doing a needs assessment. So I would say if you're starting in trying to get needs assessments incorporated, then I would say to start with just your on the spot. You can do those at the beginning of your training or throughout your training, just incorporating those, because usually those are pretty simple ways to do a needs assessment. And then as you become more comfortable with doing needs assessments, or become more comfortable with people that you're training maybe more regularly, and you can develop a relationship with the director, you could do those more kind of formal types of needs assessments.
And I got a message in mind that was talking about more towards the program with a lot of needs, that having several trainings is definitely best. The problem that they tend to run into is just getting people to commit to doing more trainings instead of, the one and done type of training.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that can be an issue and a concern. They may or may not be willing. If you're at that point and it's like they really need something, I would start with the most important thing, whatever is the highest priority. Like April said, prioritize like what's most important. Okay, you're not going to be able to commit to doing more than one training, so let's just start with what is the most important training first, and then who knows, maybe after that first one, then they'll be like, what, never mind, I want to do them all, and get more trainings.
Right. Okay. So Julie suggested maybe if you're having problems with people emailing people back, if they've ever tried to like text a link for their needs assessment. People are always around their phone, so that might be a quicker way to get some responses. Of course, you would probably need your participants' email or telephone numbers to text. Let's see. Jenna says, I like talking to staff instead of directors a lot because they won't always tell the directors what they feel they need for various reasons. So I asked directors for staff emails for monkey surveys since it is anonymous. Okay. And I also do coffee breaks. That is a go-to meeting to discuss with them during a staff meeting. Okay, good ideas. Yes, and Calvania said a series of trainings on a topic. Yes.
Yeah. And I definitely, directors are a good place to get information. Staff, depending on what it is you're wanting, might be the better. If the director's not in the classroom all the time, they might not know the direct issue, or the director sees one thing as the issue, whereas the staff are like, no, that's not the issue. This is the issue. So definitely, I think if you're going to get either or, get both if you can, but getting that information from everybody. And yes, anonymous surveys. I'm one that loves anonymous surveys too. So just to, so I like anonymous.
I have a question.
Yes. Yes.
If time permits and you're working with a program for a consistent length of time, would it be good to try to also first develop some type of relationship before doing the actual needs assessment, if time permits and if in a perfect world?
Yes. I mean, that's the short and simple answer. But I mean, we all kind of know that when you have relationships with people, they're more honest, and they're going to provide you with more valuable feedback.
Good point. Okay, any more questions before we move on? Okay.
All right, so in the chat, we're going to use the chat for the poll this time. So answer this question. What are you interested in using in the future in regards to needs assessment, and how would you use it? So was there anything in this that you're like, oh, that sounds really interesting, I'd like to try it? It could be something we shared. It could be something that somebody put into chat. Just, is there anything that you're interested in using in the future, and how do you think you would use it to help with needs assessments? All right, we got using reports and data, also using SurveyMonkey or a Google Doc. Is SurveyMonkey free? Yes, okay. I use Google Docs a lot, but I've taken SurveyMonkeys, but I've not actually created a SurveyMonkey before. Email survey seems to be the best. It's convenience, oftentimes more accessible. SurveyMonkey or Google Form. SurveyMonkey, limited access and easy. You can't go download the data with the free version. Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, sometimes with the surveys too, short, sweet, simple, as easy as you can make it, even if it's something as simple as like, as many drop downs as possible, versus fill in text, things that don't require multiple pages, to answer. I did like Julie's idea if anybody has texted, the surveys to somebody, that might be an interesting idea and a way to do it. Obviously, you'd have to have phone numbers and all of that stuff. But I know for me sometimes, like with my inbox, apologize for anybody whose email is currently in there. If I don't get to it right away, it tends to kind of go down. And then it's like, I forget to fill out, like we got a survey from UK for work life. And it was like, oh yeah, I'll fill it out. And then 3 days later, they send me my reminder that I hadn't filled it out yet. And it's like, oh yeah, I got to fill that out. So for me personally, anything that is going to give me reminders. Oh, good job, Bridget. Google Forms is easy. Just created her first one today. I'm a little obsessed with Google and Android, so I'll try not to get on how amazing Google and all of the stuff that they offer is. We can talk later. All right. All right, Miss April.
Okay, so as somebody was mentioning earlier about getting a copy of the PowerPoint, even though we don't send out a copy of the PowerPoint, we have recorded today's Trainer Connections events, and all of the previous Trainer Connections events are found at our online community. It is on HDI Learning. The link is available at the bottom. So you're free to go there. It is a free course, so it'll look like you're are purchasing it, but it's a free course. So take advantage of that. So all of our resources are in there and all the recordings of the Trainer Connections. Okay, so before we move on to the next slide, I will announce that soon we will be having some postings come out for positions that we are looking for new training coaches. We have 2 training coach positions that are going to be coming open hopefully very soon. We will get those posted. Be looking for them on our Facebook page as well. The links to those when they become available will be posted there for anybody that wishes to apply. The training coach positions that will become available will be for Salt River region and for the Northern Bluegrass region. Julie has been covering Salt River region, and she's going to be going to the Jefferson region, but as of right now, she's covering both. Dawn is still kind of in the Northern Bluegrass training coach position, but she has taken a new position. So she won't be completely away from us, but she'll be more in the background. Remind me, Dawn, the name of your position that you're taking?
Instructional Design Coordinator.
Okay, yes. So with
It's
HDI,
fancy sounding.
yes, with HDI Learning. So she will still be kind of close at hand for us if we need her. And we will. Also, I just noticed that Julie put the link for that online community within the chat, so that if you need that, you can click directly on that. It says some congrats in the chat too, Dawn, for you. Okay, so if you're interested in becoming a training coach, you can let any of us know, and we'll be glad to send you those links when they come out. Or just keep watching on the Facebook page, because we'll get those posted when that becomes available. Also for next month in October, our next Trainer Connections date will be October the 19th at 2 Eastern time or 1 Central time. And it is what's in a training, writing quality descriptions, titles, and more. So be sure to come back for that. They will send out a email to register at a later date. So, okay. Thank you everybody for being on our Trainer Connections today. If you have any further questions, you can feel free to unmute or to send us something in the chat and we'll get that answered for you. If not, thank you all again for being here, and we look forward to seeing you guys in October.